Hey everyone, my name is Rachel Akers and today I want to do a tutorial for you on how to make these really pretty just one bead bracelet. So it's a really simple process, and if you're just beginning, it's a really fun little thing to create so that you can learn how the wire moves and probably kind of the tools that you need to start off with. So this one is made using a lovely pale blue cat's eye bead, and it's using 18 gauge rose gold wire, but you can make them in all sorts. So the one I'm wearing today is a adventurine stone and using 20 gauge wire. This one, I love this one. This one is a lava bead, which has some really cool little holes in it, like little moon, like it looks like a moon basically, but it's called lava bead. That's made with 20 gauge silver, which I think looks really pretty and really delicate. But the 18 gauge is just a little bit more sturdy. So if you're just starting out, you might want to get the 18 gauge and have a practice with that. If you want to know more about gauges, there is a video explaining what the gauges of wire are and when you might want to use them. So take a look at that after this video, there'll be a link. For now, we're going to be working on these bracelets. So this is also using a 20 gauge, but as you can see, the copper, this copper isn't as neat. It's not as easy to work with because it's very soft. So as I said before, I'd probably recommend an 18 gauge, and you can either buy it in silver or you can buy it in antique bronze, or you can buy it. So this one is using a jade bead, and this is 16 gauge, so it's a bit more chunky. Doesn't look quite as delicate, but the antique bronze is really nice. So those are the different types. I just wanted to show you those to start with, to show you how pretty they look. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use a 20 gauge silver wire, and I'm going to use a 4mm, or I think this is a 6mm little tiny pearl. So that's what I'm going to make for you today. But there are all sorts of different beads that you can get, and I can show you because I love my bead collection. I have so many beads. So don't go crazy. I go crazy because I do make a lot of jewellery. I've got you know, all sorts, rose quartz, alabaster, I've got jade and adventurine and all sorts of wonderful things. But we can move on to the different gemstone types at another point. But for today, what I'm going to use is a 6mm little cream pearl right there, and I'm going to use a 20 gauge silver wire. And then to attach the bead, if you look at my bracelet, if you can see there that it's got a smaller wire to attach the bead and to make the ends stay together, and that wire is a 26 gauge silver plated. So to begin, you're going to need a few tools. Now I have a number of tools because I do this quite a lot, but the first one that I bought is this one. This one is it's got a flat edge that you can kind of think, I'm trying to think of the word, that you can kind of squash the wire down with to make it all sit nicely. But it also has a cutter in it, so I don't know if you can see there that there's actually a little cutter in this one, which is really helpful because then you only need one tool. But for making this, for me, to make it a little bit easier, I do have some other wire cutters and pliers to help me make them, but I'm just saying to you, you don't need them. You don't need to go out and buy loads, but they do actually come in a set. You can order them in the description. There is a link that will take you to a set of 3 pliers, which I think are probably going to be the most helpful for you to make this. So these are the round ended pliers, and they are really helpful to make the little curls on the ends. So those are really good ones to use. And then I have my cutters. So these cutters are just really helpful to cut any of these sizes of wires. But if you get any higher than, I'd say, 2mm of wire, they're not the best for cutting, but these are really helpful to get a really clean edge on a really thin piece of wire. And then I also have these flat-ended square pliers. You don't necessarily need these because these will do the job, but these just flatten the wire down as you go along. So I'll explain as I go why you need them and when you're going to use them. I don't always measure my pieces, but I do have a tape measure here, so I can tell you roughly what size wire you need to start with. But the first thing we do is we get our 20 gauge silver plated wire, and I'm actually going to just cut the end off here because it's got a little kink in it, and because this is a very delicate bracelet, if you can see the bracelet, because it's a very delicate bracelet, you don't want to have any kinks in it because it's not easy to straighten out and it just looks messy. And to be honest, it doesn't matter if you just lose a little end of wire. So I'm going to cut that off, and we're going to start with a nice smooth piece of wire. Now I know for myself that I need approximately 20 centimetres or 6 inches of wire so that it fits nicely. But this is an open-ended one, so you can cinch it in a bit tighter or pull it out. So I'd say 20 centimetres is roughly okay for to start with, but I would measure your wrist and see what yours is like, and just see what you think you need, because some people do have, I have quite a thin wrist, so I know that I need to make mine to a certain length. But so I'm going to cut that to roughly 20 centimetres, and then I'm going to make sure it's nice and straight just by running my fingers along it a couple of times, because it comes on a coil, it can be a bit twisty, and we just want to straighten it out nicely as much as we can. Next piece, we're going to measure exactly the same, so we're going to do tip to tip here. I'm going to get to the end there, and I'll show you that you can either use your cutters that I use, or you can actually just cut with this piece as well. So I'll show you, you can start with just one plier and to do the job that you want it to do. So those are the two lengths that we have. Those are the two lengths that we have here, and we are going to start twisting. So I'm going to put one down. I'm going to get my round-ended pliers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bend in the wire, just like that, so that it meets itself. And then what I want to do is I want to take the other piece of wire and do the same again, but I want it to twist the opposite way. So I'm going to twist this one towards me. I'm going to twist it like that. And as you can see, you've got one, we have two, and we're going to put them together like this. So we want to hold those nice and firmly. I'm going to put them down for a second because what I want to do is just cut off a little length of this 26 gauge silver plated wire. This wire is much thinner, and this is what we use to do all of our twisting. You don't need a huge piece. I would say again perhaps 20 centimetres, and I'm going to cut that off. This will probably be enough for the whole piece, but not to worry if we need to cut a little bit more. So we're going to put these two pieces together here like this, and I'm going to hold this with my thumb. It's a little bit fiddly to start with, and I'm going to wrap this around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 times, just to try and make that nice and secure. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my flat edged pliers, or as I said before, if you only need one, you could use these ones as well, and squash it together just so that they're all nicely linked. I will hold that up for you so you can see that I've just done 6 little twists. And what you want to make sure of, when you cut this wire off, you want to make sure that it's on the top of your bracelet. It's going to stop at the top of your bracelet, because what you don't want is for this to perhaps come a little bit loose and end up digging into your skin. So we're going to just chop that really close there. You need to hold on to the other end because it can go shooting off across the room. I've had that happen a few times. So hold on to both ends as you cut so that it doesn't go flying across the room, and you can keep track of all your little pieces. So again, with this other end, I'm going to cut really close and hold on to the other end. There we go, so that doesn't go flying. And just make sure you can use your fingers or you can get your pliers. And we're going to just flatten that down so it's nice and tight. Doesn't matter if it slides around because it will stay in place once the whole bracelet is made. So that is the beginning of our bracelet. Now what we need to do is attach the bead. So I am going to, shaky hands, I'm going to pull this out like this. Make sure it's really nice and straight because it is quite noticeable if you don't have a straight piece. You could use pliers to do that, but I kind of like to use my fingers. I do have cuts all over my fingers, by the way, just from doing this all the time. And we're going to make sure that that stays in place on this side, and we want to try and judge where we think is the middle. So I'd say round about here we're going to place our bead, but I wouldn't worry too much because it can slide up and down a little bit to get it into place. So I'm going to take my 6mm little pearl and my 26 gauge wire, and what we're going to do, I'm going to place that in there for a minute to keep it safe, is we're going to start by wrapping the wire around this side 1, 2, 3, 4 times and pulling that nice and close. What I like to do is make sure I've got a little bit of wire just hanging off there, because you can always cut off the excess and basically make it all flush at the end. So if it slides around, you've got that little bit of leeway there. And you've got to be very careful with this 26 gauge wire because it can snap. If you get a little kink in it and you try and straighten it out, it can break off, which isn't entirely helpful. So we've done 4 little twists there. Then we need to move, it's quite tricky to show you, but we need to move it down a little bit and do another 4 twists, but coming back on ourselves. So I'll show you at the end, but if you see where I've done this twist here, if you can see that, and then we will twist 1, 2, 3, 4, and we will bring it back to the center, because what you want is for your bead to go from the center so that you've got 4 little loops either side and your bead is going to attach to that part there. So then we squeeze that together so it's nice and neat. Got to make sure you can see, but I've also got to make sure I can see. So that's always fun. Right, so that is in place, and what we want to do is chop off this little excess piece here. So I have got my little cutters and I am going to make sure it's nice and flush. Whoop, see, that bit flew all over the place. So yeah, try and make sure you hold both sides so it doesn't fly off all over the place. Right, so just going to neaten that up a little bit and get my pliers and squash it down like that. Lovely. And then what we're going to do is take the little pearl and I'm going to thread the pearl onto the wire like so. So as you can see, it's really nice and flush to that side, and we need to make it nice and tight on the other side as well. The good thing about this is you can push it around a bit because you can see it slip down here, but that doesn't matter because I can push it back and line it up again, just like that. And then what we're going to do with this piece is I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight, and I'm going to do 4 little coils again. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Just make sure that that's nice. You can see how this is starting to form now. So we're starting to get our bracelet. So I've done 4 on that side, and what I want to do is now feed this through here. Try and make sure that the extra piece is on the underside of the wire. If you see what I've just done. So actually it looks like it's really flush on top, and the little extra piece of wire is hidden underneath the bracelet so you can't see. So then we do 4 on that side. Straighten that up again. So I've done 4 on that side, and then what we want to do is what we did last time, is just use our flat-edged pliers to squeeze that together so that it looks really nice and flush and not too messy. And then the main thing to do, last thing to do on this, is to chop it off, holding on to the other end so it doesn't go flying. And there you have your bead attached. So to finish this off, follow it down, make sure that they're still pretty much the same length. If I check that this end is flush again, like that, follow this down. So you can make this whole thing quite straight and then curve it to fit your wrist. Go down like this. Right, so you can see that that's pretty much even. And what we want to do is our little curls on either end again. So I'm going to take this one here with my round edged pliers. I'm going to do a curl that way, like that. And then with the other one, I'm going to do a curl that way, like that. And there we have the other end. My ring's falling off. Right, I'm going to just flatten that out a little bit to make sure that that stays like that. Ensure that the other end is still flush. Yep. And then time to finish off. So holding on to it tight, we're going to do need to move that back down a bit. 3, 4, 5 and 6. 20 centimetres was an amazing guess because I'm not wasting too much. There we go. So just to finish off again, so we'll take that away from the camera then. You see we've got 2 little ends sticking out and we need to neaten them up again. So we're going to use these to squish them close together and then take our cutters and just cut really nice and closely. Again, I'm putting my finger across the top so it doesn't go flying across the room. I end up finding lots of tiny little bits of metal all over the place, and we're going to squash that down to finish it off. Now I'm looking at this bead thinking it's probably not quite central, so I'm just going to slide it around a bit until it is. The great thing about this wire is as long as it doesn't have a big bend in it, you will be able to straighten it out. So I can feel a little sharp bit on this end, so what I'm going to do is take a look. Yeah, that's not flattened down quite right. Flatten it down. What you need to do is run your fingers along it a little bit to make sure that there's nothing too pointy and sharp, because you don't want to be getting stabbed when you're wearing a piece of jewellery. So Just a little tip for you there. And now we just need to finish it off. We need to make sure it bends around our arm. So I just use my fingers to really gently slide it around and into a bracelet kind of shape. Just keep gently twisting it into shape, like so. And then what I want to do is just pop it on my wrist just to make sure that it fits okay. So I can squeeze it. It's quite good. It's not going to suddenly break on you. Slide that back down. There we go. I'm going to squeeze it a little bit tighter, so you can see. And there we have it. We have a lovely silver with a lovely little pearl bracelet, and it will probably take a little bit of adjustment to make it the perfect shape. But if I take that off my wrist now, you can see that even just from squeezing it, it's still in a really nice shape, just like these ones. We've got a lovely one with our pearl, we've got one with our lava bead, got one with a dark blue cat's eye in copper there, we've got one with a lovely pale blue, and slightly chunkier one with a jade bead. And there you go. We are done. So I would love you to like this video if you've enjoyed what you've watched. Please do send me photos if you've tried to make this. I would love to see them. Leave a comment below if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thanks.